Hey, I'm Stan Gibson, and this is the Inspiration Podcast. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Inspiration Podcast with Stan. I'm your host, and this is episode number 10. I'm finally at the end of my first season, and I'm so stoked. And they said I wouldn't do it, and here I am. You know, there's plenty of leadership podcasts out there that showcase the highlight reels, the awards, the milestones, and the standing O's. But here, we dive into the messy stuff. We get into that messy middle, because that's where life is today, that space where real growth happens, and nobody really wants to talk about it. So each week, I sit down with leaders who aren't afraid to pull back the curtain on their journey. We explore the self-doubt they've battled, the resilience they've built, and how they've found the courage to lead authentically in a world that's pushing back for conformity. So hey, grab your favorite drink, get comfortable. Let's jump into today's honest conversation and what leadership really looks about. And today I'm excited because I've got Dawn Wolfgram in the house. Dawn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Stan. I'm so happy to be here. It's good to see you.
Oh, I'll tell you what, for those of you that are listening on audio, you really need to check out the YouTube, because Dawn has this smile. You can just hear this little giggle in the background. It's just infectious. I imagine the first time you met your husband, Chris, he just melted. He probably asked you to marry him right then. I mean, you've just got this smile. Tell me about that. Do other people talk to you about that?
Yeah, they do. They do. In fact, my mom, she always used to say, or it still says, that I laugh easy. So I'm an easy laugher. I like to have a big smile on my face. I'm just, generally speaking, I try to be, and I think I am pretty happy most of the time. So yeah, I do hear that.
Yeah, I don't think I've known you without one, except for some of the parts of this interview that we'll get into it, which was what makes it really interesting. Because yeah, you've got this infectious smile. Gosh, you and I have known each other. Actually, this is what makes this story cool for a long time. How did we first meet?
Yeah, it takes us way back, doesn't it, Stan? So you and I were in the same Leadership Iowa class. I don't even know what year it was. It's been a while. It's been many, many years ago.
Let's just leave it. It's been many, many years ago.
Yeah. But I feel so honored, because I love the fact that we've stayed connected. And I don't know that, you can say that about every class member, but I've always just really had so much respect for you. And I love the fact that I keep track of you on LinkedIn. And I know you and I have had, several conversations even above and beyond that over the last few years. So yeah, it was Leadership Iowa, and what a great learning experience, but even more so than that, just great connections that we made.
Yeah, you want to know one of the things I learned most. And again, for those of you out there, if you've never been part of a leadership academy, this was Iowa Leadership, and we get to do big boy, big girl travel. We get to go once a month, do an overnight stay, and we'd go somewhere in the state of Iowa. Yes, there is business, economy, commerce in the state of Iowa. Unbelievable. Never imagined how the state of Iowa is changing the world in so many different ways. But we got to go on overnights, and there was a group from Des Moines. There's 5 of us. And it was one of those things that I looked more forward to the travel with this group than I actually, and the leadership part was awesome, but the travel. You ever go on trips where you are just laughing so hard, your cheeks hurt, and you don't want the travel to end? How did you feel about that, Don? You agree?
Oh, 100%. Yes. I mean, my cheeks hurt every time. And we just had so much fun. And I know we also continue doing some breakfasts here locally when I was still living here in Des Moines, and when you were still in Des Moines. And so I really, really loved that ongoing work. But I will also say too, Stan, one of the things that I took away from just being, hoping to be a change agent for the state of Iowa, and really learning about the issues that were facing Iowa, and helping to try to drive change through the Leadership Iowa group that we were in. Above and beyond that, just like I said, the connections. And one of the things that I knew and learned about you was really around just how you pour into people, and how you work to coach people. And you were really just the things that you had to say and the lessons that you shared in a larger group. I know that's when I picked up the phone and I called you that one day. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I definitely remember. And I think we want to go there. And in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put that on pause just for 1 second, because I want to touch on something about your childhood that I find unique as we evolve from childhood into that first call, because I really do remember that first call. But
Yeah.
tell us what was so unique about your childhood, Don.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up as a coda, so I'm a child of deaf adults, and both of my parents are profoundly deaf. They both turned or became deaf when they were 2 years old. So they, way back when in the 30s, they didn't have medical technologies or the advancements or the education or knowledge that they have today. And so when my parents both got spinal meningitis at the age of 2, they lost their hearing completely. Like they are profoundly deaf. And I think that's, one is unique. Definitely growing up in a household where American Sign Language was our first language for me and my two sisters. We learned how to sign before we could speak. But then I think the other thing that's very unique about our upbringing, and I think it's unique even with deaf parents, is my parents never viewed their deafness as a disability. They viewed their deafness as a rich culture, as a gift, as a differentiator. They're proud of being deaf. I mean, they literally are proud that they are deaf. Growing up in that household, it was hard. I will tell you this because as kids, we had to do things that normal kids didn't have to worry about doing. Interpreting for my mom and dad when they had to go to the doctor, or meetings that they had with bankers, or just depending on what it is that we had to be their ears to really drive it home. And my oldest sister, I think, carried the brunt of the work because she was the oldest. But my mom had several miscarriages when she was trying to have more children. And Diana, my oldest sister, at the age of 5, had to interpret in the emergency room a miscarriage. So if you think about when you're 5-year-old, so those are just some of the things that we had to do. Now, looking back, Stan, we wouldn't change. And I even talked to my sister last night, and we were talking about, this podcast and just having some time to kind of reflect on our childhood. We wouldn't change a thing, like not a thing. We've learned so much about just how to navigate, how to overcome obstacles, and to reframe difficult situations into a positive. And so, yeah, we had to grow up faster, but you know what? So what? It probably led to a lot of the successes that my sisters and I have had over the years.
Oh, absolutely. One of the comments I remember you saying is that you could have some great parties because they couldn't hear. They were in the next room, and you could.
We would.
I only remember certain things in life, and that was one. I'm pretty limited, but I do remember certain comments. And when you said that, I just got the biggest chuckle out of that.
That is so true. You are absolutely right. Yeah, we had a lot of fun along the way.
Now, I can only imagine how it changed your leadership, and I do want to talk about that in a second. But your sister, and I know you're proud of both of your sisters, you got this great relationship, but one of your sisters actually has a business around signing, does she not?
Yeah, so she actually just sold her business a year ago. Yesterday was her anniversary. And so, but yeah, she had a nationwide presence for sign language interpreting all across the country. And it's again, you take that, what could have been something viewed as a really, difficult situation and commiserating about it. But no, I mean, I think the way that we were raised is to look for how do we make the most out of the situation? How do we find the beauty in it and really look at it differently, and that's something we definitely got from our parents.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And because I do know that, from what little I knew about her business, I mean, they were signing at concerts, huge church gatherings. I mean, where there'd be, several thousand people. I mean, she just had a company that they were basically communicating. They were that gap between the speaker and the audience. And so anyway, that's phenomenal. So what's the one, how do you feel it changed your communication style growing up like this?
Yeah. And I think it really led to, well, I'll back up just a second. I'll share a couple of quick stories, and then I'll explain why I wanted to share those. So growing up with deaf parents, the jobs that they had were very much more blue collar-ish, right? And what they were able to do just because of their deafness. But they never let that hold them back. So they owned several companies. They had jobs. My dad ran a farm for many, many years. They had 3 girls. So they had me and my 2 older sisters. And to make ends meet, they would do anything that they needed to do to bring enough money in so that we could have a roof over our heads and food on our table. One of the things that they did for many years is they went and they got a job as janitors. In the middle of the night, they would go to a local Mark's Big Boy. I don't know if you remember the old Mark's Big Boy.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So there was one not far from our house. And for several years, they would go there and they would clean in the middle of the night. Well, they couldn't leave us girls at home by ourselves at night. So they would lift us up out of our beds when we're sleeping, put us in the car, drive us to Mark's Big Boy, pick us up, put us in the booths and at the restaurant. They're cleaning, pick us back up, take us home. And then we would get ready. We'd wake up in a couple hours, get it ready for school. And they would do that, rinse and repeat every single night for years. And they did that so that, again, we could make our ends meet. And so what I learned, and I know my sisters would say the same, is we learned the value of hard work and the work ethic that we saw our parents have day in and day out. Now we look back and I know the word. I didn't know it then, but I know the word now is grit. They had grit.
Yeah.
And we saw that grit every single day. And I know that it has led me and my sisters to have a certain communication style, to value hard work and to not make excuses for why we don't have things that we want or can't do things that we want. We'll figure it out. It's just one of those things. You do what it takes to make ends meet. You do what it takes to get to where you want to be. And we learned that very much from my parents.
Wow. Yeah, that's a phenomenal story.
Yeah.
I could only just imagine learning to sign at such a young age and just, again, having to listen, having to read lips. Do you read lips, by the way?
No.
Good. Because I was worried about, what I might be mouthing out right now. And so I knew you might be looking through the screen and saying, what's he mean by that?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. So, I've neglected through this podcast to really talk about your career. And this is the part I want to get into because, again, you've talked about some humble beginnings. You talked about a really unique childhood that you wouldn't trade for anything in the world. And yet you have achieved such phenomenal status in the wealth management world. And again, let's go back to that conversation we had. Again, I hate to age us, but it was about 20 years ago. And it was that conversation you called me and you wanted to break the glass ceiling. You wanted to do something nobody else had ever done. Tell me about that.
Yeah. You were my first and only call, Stan. I knew that I needed help. I had a big goal. I had aspirations that I started to doubt whether or not I was able to get to that level. I was starting to doubt whether or not I'd be able to even get noticed for the opportunity. And so I remember I picked up the phone and I called you and I said, Stan, I need your help. I'm feeling like I feeling like I've lost some moxie. I feel like I've lost some confidence. And in order for me to get to this next level, would you help me? And you graciously said, I'd be happy to. So I do credit you and I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart because that set a trajectory for me into my career that I don't know that I would have had that if you weren't that person right there steering me and guiding me. And the thing that you did, Stan, you didn't give me a quick, simple, easy fix, or you had me work on me. You had me work on myself. And I think that surprised me. I really was hoping you would help me, thinking that I wanted help, more with leadership styles or communication. And it wasn't about that. At that time, Stan, you were like, that will come, but you need to focus on you, what's important to you, how to find balance. Where are you spiritually? Where are you with your family? I mean, all of those things were like, well, that's not what I want to talk about, Stan. I want to talk about this over here. But that work that you encouraged me to do on myself is the only thing that got me to where I needed to go, where I wanted to go. So again, I credit you for that. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate that. I always say that, if you're not doing well at home, you're not doing well at work. If you're not doing well at work, you're not doing well at home. And so there is a mind, body, and soul aspect. And self-awareness, I think, is one of the greatest things that leaders can take the time out to prepare themselves for even greater leadership. But I appreciate the comment, because I'll tell you what I remember. I remember giving you like some things to do and thinking this was going to be a 6-month gig, and you coming back in like 2 weeks and you were done. It's like you figured out the Rubik's Cube in 2 weeks. And I'm like, wow. And the amazing thing is you had this tremendous goal of breaking the glass ceiling, being the first regional managing director for Principal Financial Group that's a female. And how long after we had talked did that actually happen?
Oh gosh, it set me on the path, and it probably took maybe a year or two after we started engaging in our coaching. But I started to get noticed, and when there was an opportunity, to the company I worked for was amazing. They started to recognize some things and started to really, and with the help of my leader at the time too. I mean, he was a big advocate for me, and not just an advocate; he was a sponsor of mine. Like he would tell my story, and he would make introductions. And so, I mean, all of these things kind of came together, but probably, I don't know, within 2 to 3 years, maybe after that. But the path that I got set on was almost immediate after really, really focusing on, like you said, the mind, body, spirit, the self-awareness, all of the work that you had me do on myself really paid off almost instantly.
Wow. So this wasn't easy. I mean, you had to pick up and move.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell us about that. I mean, so obviously you're excited about this new opportunity. It's something you'd always wanted.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that came with it? There was a move, obviously. Tell us a little bit about that, and just, some of the challenges that came with finally getting what you'd always wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple things I will tell you. We, being the first named female regional managing director that this company had ever had, I mean, there were eyes on me, right?
Yeah.
Rightfully so. People were wondering, is this going to work? How is she going to do this? And I worked hard every single day to make sure that those people that took a chance on me at the company never regretted their decision. It was a conscious thought that I had every morning when I'd get up, as I was doing that work for, I don't know, 15 years. And it was a conscious choice. And I think one of the things that a friend of mine told me, and it resonates with me, and she's in financial services also, but she says, people want what I have, they just won't do what I do.
Mm.
And that resonated with me too, because if I really want this role, if I really want to be the best I can be in that role, I've got to be willing to do the work. And so I never was afraid of that. Again, kind of going back to my parents and seeing that that's what it takes to get ahead. That's what it takes to make ends meet. That's what it takes to be successful in whatever, is being willing to do the work. And so that's one of the things that I think drove me. I never viewed my being a woman as anything other than just I didn't want an opportunity just because I was a female. I wanted to make sure that I proved day in and day out that I was able to do the job, and not just able to do it, but to crush it. And so we had some really, really great successes early on, and actually all throughout my 15 years as a regional managing director. We had there was growth, there was camaraderie, there was friendships, there were relationships, there was dealing with compliance issues that creep in from time to time. So it was good and the bad, but I was up for it, and I felt prepared, and I felt ready for it the whole time.
So going through this as a leader, what's your magic trick? What is it you do that other people look at you and say, damn, that's magic, and to you it's like, no, this is just me, it's just Dawn. What is it that you do? What's your magic trick? What's your secret sauce?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things I would mention that really just pop into my head. One is I think I'm really good at building relationships. I think I can build trust because I am authentic. I'm genuine. It's what you see is what you get, right? And I think that helps me to build relationships. I think when you build trust, a lot of other things can happen, but you can't get to where you need to go if you don't have that base of trust. Another thing I would say is I've been told, and I've never been a cheerleader, but I've been told I'm a natural cheerleader for people. I'm rooting them on. I'm cheering them on. I know that I can see almost what they almost can't see for themselves, and I'm excited for them, genuinely excited when we see successes happen with the people around me. And so I've been told that I'm a cheerleader. But the third thing I would have to say is I'm really big on preserving people's dignity. And I took a class early on in my leadership career, and it was actually based off of a book and a video by James A. Autry, who was an executive leader at Meredith Corporation. And the book and the video that I saw is called Love and Profit. And it talks about the art of caring leadership and how you can have difficult conversations with people. And most of the time when you have a difficult conversation with somebody, a lot of times the leaders they just want it over with. And so the conversation is really curt, it's short, it's unfeeling, it's tough. But if you lead into those conversations by saying, hey, I care about you and I care about what happens to you, but I also care about the organization and I care about what happens, and the work isn't getting done, and you have to help me solve this, or we have to find something else for you. And you can have a difficult conversation, but if it's rooted in care, it can be a very fruitful conversation where at the end of that conversation, even if you have to let that person go, if you get a thank you at the end of that conversation, you've done it right. And that's what I always strive for.
Did this unique gift you have, was this prevalent in your industry, or was it pretty unique?
Oh gosh, I've never thought about that question. I don't know. I'm not sure, and I think the industry has the financial services industry has a reputation of being cutthroat, and I can honestly say I rarely ever have run across that type of feeling in the industry. But it is an intense industry, and it's fast moving, and you've got to be on your game. You've got to be ready to go every single day. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I never really thought about that and whether it's prevalent or not. I guess I just wanted to do what I knew was authentic to me and my style. Because at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to lay down on a pillow every night and know and kind of do a check-in. Did I do okay today? And I just always want to treat people with respect and preserve their dignity no matter what. The other thing in the love and profit training and work that I've done and the reading that I've done is setting clear expectations for people and letting them know what it is that we expect out of you and helping them figure out a way to get there, but giving that, how do I say this? Setting them up for success. Being clear about the expectations, I think, is really key. Whether they can rise to the occasion or not is going to be up to them and the support that we put around them. I wanted to always be clear. And then if we ever got to that point where we had to have a difficult conversation, then I know that I've done everything that in my power to make sure that they've had every chance of succeeding at that.
Wow.
And if they didn't succeed, we find them a soft landing somewhere else.
Well, you had some adversity in your career, and I want to get to that. Before I kind of go down that road, this kind of breaking the glass ceiling, this being the first female, and I know that you don't dwell on it, but have there been others that have been able to do that since you at Principal Financial Group, or have you led or helped someone else kind of reach that same milestone you were after?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think Principal, as well as all of the other companies out there, they've really tried to pour into making sure that their field force is more diverse. And I'm really proud of what I'm seeing in the industry. I mean, we still have a ways to go. If you look at statistics, women in financial services is still really, really low. But there's organizations that I know I've been a part of, and movements and initiatives and all of those things to try to move the needle a little bit at a time. But I feel like we're making progress as an industry. It's probably not as fast as I'd like to see. Not probably. It is not as fast as I'd like to
Right.
see. But I do think that we're getting there. We're doing what we can, I think, a little at a time. But I'd like to see it be more 50-50 of men versus women. I think that women have a place in the industry. I think they needed a seat at the table. And I think the industry becomes stronger and better when you have more women. And I'm not saying less men. I'm just
Right.
saying women. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. So let's get into the nitty-gritty part, because this is the part that, again, I love about this podcast, is where we talk about some of the tougher times. And, we always talk about leadership and how people tend to rise to the top, and we just don't think that there's any adversity along the way. But like with any great leaders, like you were, and, you were crushing it, as you said, and I know you were, you get poached. People of your caliber get poached, and you got poached, and you had an opportunity to go to an even bigger responsibility. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked at my first company for over 30 years. I thought literally I would be a lifer there. And I loved the company. I still love it to this day. It's a phenomenal company. But you're right. I had an opportunity to look at another company, and they made me an offer that, quite frankly, was a really great offer, and it gave me more responsibility, a bigger opportunity, a bigger territory. Really was going to challenge me in a way that I hadn't been challenged in a long time, and so I felt I was ready for that change and a new challenge. And I really, it was hard to leave a company that I loved so much, that I owe so much to, but it was time. And so when I went to this new company, it was a great fit. I loved the work that I did, really loved it. I loved the advisors that I got to work with. There were over 400 advisors that I was partnering with. It was just a phenomenal experience. A great company. What's not to love about it? And I was there for just around 2.5 years, and I joined them in 2022. So early in 2022 is when I made the change. So the adversity that you're talking about kind of came in unexpectedly. So I joined in early 2022. Later that year, my dad passed away. That was really hard for me and my whole family. He was an amazing man. And so we lost him. And then quickly into 2023, my husband had an accident at home, and it was a life-altering accident. And he spent the next 20 months working on rebuilding his strength and recovering from the injuries and the damage that it did to his organs. And it was quite an ordeal. Boy, nobody expected that, right? And so the pressure that I had at work to deliver great results, and the pressure that I had at home, right in my, the confines of our own, our four walls, in our home, it was incredibly stressful. And then at the same time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So it was boom, boom. And 2023, I have to say, Stan, was the hardest year of my life. And it's not even close. Like it took its toll. And I don't know that from the outside looking in, anyone would have known. Like the people that were close to us knew what was going on with Chris and him being in the hospital, and then coming home, and all the things that we were going on that was happening. And then with my mom and all of this stuff. But outsiders looking in, they would have seen a smile on my face, success at my job. That year in 2023, with all of this stuff going on, I led a territory, and we finished the year #1 in the company. And we were recognized in early 2024. And surprising to me, I did not expect this, but I was also awarded their Outstanding Leader Award of the Year. such a huge honor, and it's something I didn't expect, right? Especially because of all of this pressure. But again, I was pushing all of that down and just putting my head down and going to work. And when I was at work, I'd put my head down and go to work there. And when I was at home, I was putting my head down and helping Chris and just trying to make, just trying to get by. But I can tell you, my tank was empty. It was beyond empty. I remember after winning this award, again, it was such a prestigious award. I was so honored. But after winning this award, you'd think I'd be on cloud nine, right?
Right.
But my sister called me and they said, hey, we're coming to Kansas City, which is where I live. They said, we're coming to Kansas City. We're taking you to lunch to celebrate. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. So they get there, we're at lunch, and literally I cried the whole time. The whole time. It was, I didn't even know like where all the tears were coming from. It was just it was so unexpected. And I share that story just to say, I lost who I was. I didn't know how to get help, how to ask for help. I didn't even really know that I needed help because again, you just put your head down and you do what needs to what you need to do to get by. And it was nobody's fault. It's just I think it just took its toll. All of the pressure, all of the stress, it just took its toll. I didn't know how to pull myself out of it, but I'll say one quick thing because I talk about grit and I talk about my parents and I talk about the life lessons that we learned. I would never change that. In fact, I love having grit. It's what makes me who I am, right? I'm a fighter and I'll take the good with the bad, right? And I'll work hard to get where I need to be. But I also know through this experience that grit is great and I want that and I need that, but I also need permission to just take time and just do a check-in from time to time on how am I doing? And I didn't do that. I've never had to really do it. And so this was a life lesson for me that I needed to really slow things down. So what I had done, I resigned. I resigned from a phenomenal job. It was the right job. It was the wrong time. And I also have told people too that something had to give in order for me to maintain my sanity and my ability to even, do anything. Something had to give and it couldn't be family. So I resigned from a really great job and I took the next 5 to 6 months and I really just tried to find myself again, find that spark. People around me had said that were closest to me said, I feel like we've lost you. Like I didn't laugh like I used to laugh. And now I'm laughing again, it's wonderful. But I really feel like I lost who I was. And I didn't pay attention to the signs of burnout until I was completely burnt out.
You went exactly where I was going to take you, but you beat me to the punch, and that was grit has limits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I always try to come up with the title for the show, and I think we just came up with one, my friend. Grit has limits, and what a tremendous story. And you and I had, again, I think we kind of kept up with each other a little bit through Facebook, just nothing tremendous, but I just remember reaching out to you. The timing couldn't have been probably any, maybe worse or better, but you had just resigned. It was maybe a couple of days after.
Yeah.
And you told me this story, and that's when I just knew that someday when I had a podcast, I just wanted you to express this, because I remember you saying, I've got nothing. I've got nothing in the tank. And when I went to leadership and I said, look, something's got to change. And I know they meant well, but you said they kind of doubled down on you. And you had such tremendous success, and that success meter is for them, for any organization in the United States, there's just so much pressure on the bottom line. Tell me a little bit about that feeling of they doubled down at a time when you needed help the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I look back on that experience, first of all, my my leader was definitely surprised when I called and said, "Hey, I need to I need to leave." I tendered my resignation, and up until that point, when I was struggling, I mean, they actually were very supportive. They helped. They gave me time that I needed with my husband. But at the end of the day, Stan, you're right. I mean, we are measured. We're on a scorecard constantly, and I wouldn't let myself fail. And so a lot of the pressure that I was feeling, I know I was putting on myself. But there's also always pressure at the corporate levels too to achieve results, and that's part of the gig. But I knew that if I continued, I would be failing them, and I would be failing my family at the same time. And that's when I just realized I can't do this. And so I went to my leader and I said, I need to quit. And to their credit, they said, "Well, wait a second, let's think this through. What would it take? What do you think it would take to kind of recommit to doing the job? And let's start there." And I said I would do it. So we met in another week, and I presented what I had as a plan, and I just said, I I know that this is what it's going to take to continue on, and I don't have it in me anymore. I just don't. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. And not just tired, that's not the right word. I'm spent. Like I am
Spent,
out.
yeah.
Just yeah. And so it was a really, really fruitful conversation, and we decided she agreed that if that's what I wanted, that she would respect my wishes. And I have nothing but great things to say about the company, about the leadership. It's an intense environment I was in. And I think under different circumstances, I mean, you never know. Things happen for a reason, right? That my family will always be first.
Well, I remember in that short conversation we had, I remember you saying, I can't even imagine what it would be like to go have a cup of coffee
Yeah.
and just sit there. I mean, without my phone going nuts, without feeling like I had to be 20 places at one time, without all this pressure. And I just found that such an interesting comment. I think I even gave you some things to just say, hey, if you want to journal it out. Go to a coffee shop and just find yourself again. And maybe it was probably we were coming full circle from 20 years earlier when you were finally connecting with Dawn Wolfgram. You were finally connecting with your soul.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually, after that conversation a few months back, right after I resigned, you sent me kind of a worksheet,
Yeah.
as I'm having my coffee by myself in a coffee shop to go through it. It was a really great exercise. So I think, Stan, you called me out of the blue, and things happen again for a reason, right? And you were exactly the right person that I wanted to hear from, because you helped me through a tough time before. And it's just funny. It's just serendipitous how it just
Yeah.
happened again. Yeah.
Well,
I will also share with you too, one quick thing. I started having coffees with people. I started re-engaging with my friends. I spent more time with my family in the last 5, 6 months, and it's been phenomenal. And I finally found myself again, and I feel like I'm laughing again. My husband just said over this last weekend, he goes, "I have heard you belly laugh for the first time in a long time over the last couple weeks," and I just feel like it's okay to pump the brakes. I feel like it's okay to slow down. But the advice that I got in I had met a new friend, and we were sitting down, and we were just visiting, and she was telling me about her story. I was telling her about my story, and she said to me when I was telling her just how low I had felt at that moment, because this was shortly after I resigned, and she said, "Let me ask you something." She goes, "If I have a $100 bill, what is that worth?" And I said, "Well, that's kind of a strange question, but if it's worth $100." And she says, "What if I crumpled that thing up and I threw it on the floor? How much is that $100 bill worth?" And I said, "It's worth $100." And she goes, "Exactly." I said, and to me, what that tells me and what she was telling me is that you might not feel at the top of your game. You might not feel like you might feel crumpled up and on the floor, but you still have worth and you still have value. And just because you're going through a tough time doesn't mean that you have less worth or less value. It was exactly what I needed to hear. So surrounding yourself with people like you, like her, like my family, it's what I needed to fill my tank back up.
Wow, mic drop right there. Mic drop. I try to keep podcasts around 30 minutes. This one, I couldn't care less. We could go on for a half a day because I just love your story. I love your infectious smile. I love just the zest you have for life. Before we came on, I asked you, I said, because we hadn't talked in a little bit, I said, what's your happy meter? And what was your response?
8.5. It was already, and I said, I'm digging out of a hole.
8.5.
I'll take it.
I love how you got specific. 8.5. I love it. I love the fact that you're finding life again. Love the fact that I can see that smile again because I know that it was lost for such a long time. Right now you're having the time of your life because you're not only working for Thrivent, which you can just tell me a little bit about that, but you're also consulting and you get to do both, which is phenomenal. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that? And at the end, I want them to find out how they can get in touch with you because I got to imagine somebody's got a question as to Dawn. I feel the same way. What do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. So just about a month ago, I took a position as an area vice president with Thrivent Financial, a great company. I'm still learning a lot, but it's allowing me to do what I love, which is work with leaders, work with advisors, really help them grow their businesses. And so while I was taking time for myself, I also started a new business where I was doing consulting work for top financial practices across the country and just working with them on practice management, leadership development. So again, it's all the stuff that I love doing. I'm able to do, naturally, my full-time work is with the Fortune 500 company that I committed to, but I'm also able to do a little bit of consulting and coaching on the side. That's been approved through the company to do and through, we've got regulatory standards that we have to adhere to. So all of that's been approved and good to go. So, but how to reach out to me? I mean, the best way is just through, I don't know, like my email or.
What's your website? Don't you have a website?
Yep, I do. It's dwconsulting.co. So dwconsulting.co. Yeah, happy to engage with anybody that's feeling like I was feeling. If what do they say? You go through certain things to make sure that you have the ability to help others go through the same things when they are struggling. And so I'm happy to help. I mean, just being around people that have been there, done that can be all you need sometimes.
That's what life's all about. Please, reach out to Dawn. And one of the things I think that I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to look up the James Austin Love and Profit and, put that in the show notes if anybody's interested. I did listen to that a long time ago, and I'm glad you reminded me of that. I think that that's phenomenal, and it's a great piece of leadership. We're going to finish up today. And you know what, Dawn, I can't thank you enough, man. What a blessing, that not just now, 20 years ago, the whole thing. I'm just so happy to see that you're an 8.5. And I love, grit has limits. And, so we're going to talk, I think maybe that's a good name for the show. Anyway, thank you for showing up, my friend. Please reach out to Dawn. Reach out to me, StanGibsonSpeaks.com, StanGibsonSpeaks.com. I'd love to have you just sign on to my website so that you can sign up for my newsletter. You receive it once a week. It's only about 2 minutes. It's crushing it right now. People seem to like whatever I'm putting out there. So, I hope you will get some gold nuggets. Dawn, thank you, my friend. Love you. I appreciate it. Hope you had a good time.
Thank you, Stan. I did. Great seeing you.
Okay, you too. Well, that's it for today, my friends. I hope this conversation sparked something meaningful for you. If it did, share it with someone who could use a little inspiration too. You can find more tools, stories, and coaching to support your journey at StanGibsonSpeaks.com.